Hey everyone, it's Adele and April from Just Say Scrap with Close to My Heart, and we are here with our third Technique Tuesday.
Woo!
So, this week we are going to be showing you inking and distressing, different things you can do with inking and distressing.
Yes.
So here we go. We are going to be using our Juniper ink. This is one of the old designs though for the ink. So for this one, you would hold this little knob here. It is not a button, it's just a hold. And then you would take it between your fingers, either pulling it towards you or pushing it away from you. If you have trouble with these, there is a trick to it. There is a small little knob right here that if you actually took a nail file to it, you could file it down so it's easier to open. You don't want to file it too much though, otherwise it will be too loose. They did, however, come out with a brand new set of inks, which is this. It is actually magnetic, so it opens very easily just like that. So this is actually one of our new colors. This is the nutmeg. They redid our whole entire basics, so this is one of the brand new colors. Then along with those two, we also have our Memento ink and our Versamark ink. The Versamark is what we used last week. We used it to emboss, so this is the clear ink that you saw us using, and the Memento is going to be used more for if you're stamping and coloring and you don't want that ink to bleed into your markers. This is good, or our archival black ink.
We also have StazOn ink pads in black and brown. StazOn is a multi-surface stamping ink, so you can stamp on acetate, acrylic, metal, leather, shrink plastic, cellophane, plastic, and glass. Okay, first we're going to start with our inking. We're going to be inking these two pieces of paper with our Juniper ink. So I'm going to open up the ink. We're going to be using our dauber. I like to label my daubers with every color, and then we keep them in a case. When you use your dauber, you just dab it into your ink, and you can just lightly go along the edges like this, or if you prefer, you can stroke the edges to get a deeper, a bigger inking. But either way, you just go all around the edges.
If you don't have a dauber, we prefer the daubers, but if you don't have one, a lot of people actually sometimes will take a piece of paper and just do this. It works. It's going to be darker and it's going to not be as clean, but you can do that as well, just to show you.
So here is the white daisy piece over a juniper piece that's been inked.
In juniper.
In juniper, yes. So now what I'm going to do, you can leave the bottom paper plain, or you can ink that also. And when you ink on the juniper, with the juniper ink, it's called tone on tone. So it's not going to be as prominent as it is on the white daisy cardstock, but you will be able to see it still. This is also a good technique to use if you want to do background stamping. You could do a tone on tone, which we will cover in one of our Technique Tuesdays to come.
So the ink that my mom is using right now, that is a water-based ink. We also have these tiny inks, which are pigment inks. So as you see, this one is labeled Juniper. So this ink actually can be embossed on. So like we did it last week, how we had the clear ink, you can use this ink instead and get the embossed of the Juniper color as well.
Right.
This one is going to sit more on the paper as this one soaks into the paper. So see how this is already dry?
And also it will lighten up with time because it does sink into the paper. The pigment ink stays on top, so the color will stay true. It will not
do you see how I can
into the ink? Yes.
Move that with my finger?
And that's because that is pigment, and pigment ink takes longer to dry, which is why it is used for embossing.
So now that we showed you that you could do this for you could do this as a photo mat, or you could do this as a journaling square, we wanted to show you that you could also do triple matting, which is this, and also ink all of these edges as well. Or maybe just do the middle or the top layer, whatever you would like. So just for display purposes, I am going to ink our patterned paper. So you don't have to just be inking on solid colors. You can also do it on pattern paper. It will give it more of a pop or a flare. This is also actually very good if you want to pop pictures, because let's say you have a bunch of your photos on a page. You can actually use the inking around one of the edges papers, the matting papers for one of the pictures, and it will make it pop. So see how that kind of made that paper a little bit more subtle, which is sometimes what people want. You can actually also ink pictures themselves too. You can actually take this ink and go along the border of a picture if you would like.
Right. You just have to make sure that it dries, because the finish on the pictures may keep the ink wetter for longer.
But just shows you that it gives it a completely different texture.
Right. It makes it pop more.
There are also a bunch of different techniques that you could do with the inking. Like I did here, I kind of just hit that ink pad on. Not exactly what I was going to do, but we will show you how to suede in a different video. So this is actually called sueding. You basically just take your ink pad and go like that. But we'll show you how to do that in a different video. Just wanted to give you what it would look like. Now, we are going to take our edge distresser. So it looks like this. It has just a bunch of little blades in between, and what it does is basically what it sounds like. It distresses the edges of your paper. So you basically take it, and you just take that jagged edge, and you rub it across the edge of your paper, and it frays it. You can hear it ripping it, right? That's exactly what the distressing does.
And it depends on how much you want to distress your page. If you just wanted a tiny little bit, you could just
do this.
do it lightly. Or if you really wanted the edges to be ragged, you will use it more firmly.
Also, how you can distress is you can use a sanding kit. This is actually one of our older kits, which we no longer have, but I just wanted to show you. So you can actually take an emery board, or anything, or something like this, or just pieces of sandpaper. And you would take the same paper, see how I distressed it on this side, how it's really ragged and all that. I would just take it along one of the other edges.
And this will give you a more subtle distressing.
Yep. So now we've got this one, and we've got that.
You can also use the sandpaper to distress the face of the paper. So this will remove some of the paper on the top, and you can also then ink it with the sueding technique, which we'll show you some other time, but it just gives paper that old look.
And if we wanted to put it on top of this, see, it gives it a little bit of texture. Also, when we are working with our inks, we tend to get messy, or at least I do. So I always have a piece of paper that is a scrap paper. This is something I don't care about. So I can also ink on it. So I just wanted to show you that you could also take a stamp or a saying or something, and you can ink the edges like that. Or if you wanted to and you did it light enough, you could give it some texture.
You can also use our all-purpose mat instead of a piece of paper underneath your work.
Along with this, you could also use your dauber, which is really, really good for this. If you have something cut like this, I don't know if you can see this perfectly. If you have something cut like this and you wanted to ink the edges of it, you can get all these edges by using just an ink pad normally, but the dauber will get into these little corners. Just like that. So then your job is easier. And then you've got that design. So we did show you our pigment ink before. I just wanted to show you how we stored it. We actually take one of our small organizers, this little thing, and we use one of the foam mat inserts, and we have all of our pigment inks like this. When you buy the pigment inks, they come in a 10 stack. So it's like a little tower. And then we just have it like this because we find it easier to see them like this. Another technique that you could use if you wanted to is you should store your inks upside down. These inks and our brand new ones, the magnetic ones, they do have it so when you open it, the ink pad is on the top. You want it like that because you want it to sit upside down so the ink comes to the top of the ink pad and it doesn't seep into it. So like with this, we don't store it like this. Normally, we actually have this glued to the top. So when we close it, they do stay in place. And then we could also use the bottom for something else. So, yep. So we suggest you store your inks like this. All right. Well, that is our third Technique Tuesday. We hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. Hey everyone, it's Adele.